Hi, everyone, and welcome to Jehovah Boy. I'm your host, Doug Smith, and this is the podcast where I talk to friends, comedians, artists of all ilks about struggle, hardship, trauma, bad shit, overcoming it, channeling it into your creativity without letting it define you. My guest today is my friend, comedian Phil Hanley. He has a fantastic new stand-up special on his YouTube channel as we speak. It's called Ooh La La. Please check it out. It's fantastic. This guy has a style that is very unique. He is able to weave perfectly crafted jokes with dry, playful crowd work in a way that I really have not seen before. And it's done effortlessly in a way that's so natural. It's really something to behold. It's very clear early on watching this special. You're like, man, this guy is fucking sharp. This is just, you're like watching someone perform mental gymnastics. It's very apparent that this guy is highly intelligent. And as the special unfolds, you learn that Phil was in special ed all through high school due to crippling dyslexia. He never really got the support and services necessary to help him through it. So he was in special ed all the way through high school. And it's pretty amazing considering that, what he's been able to accomplish. Easily one of the best comics working today. I fully stand behind that statement. He's great. Please check out the special. So we talked a lot about his dyslexia. I'm not dyslexic. I'm not a moron. I admitted to him that growing up, I thought that dyslexia was just another way of calling someone retarded. Teachers can't call kids retarded. They'll just call them dyslexic. I didn't know it was an actual diagnosis. I didn't know it was an actual medical condition assigned to people that are otherwise brilliant thinkers. It's not a sign of intelligence. Dyslexia has no bearing on your intelligence. It's simply a processing thing, the way that you see things, the way that lines and symbols kind of assemble themselves in your brain. So I never had a problem with that. I don't know what the dyslexic equivalent for math is, but that's my struggle. That's been my struggle my whole life. Numbers and math, it's like a venomous snake. I avoid it at all costs. It's terrible. It's a phobia. I inherited some money from a dead uncle a few years ago. And I had my brother-in-law invest it for me. And he invested it all in one stock, Church & Dwight, the people that make Arm & Hammer products. So I'm pretty sure I just gave my brother-in-law $40,000 because I didn't want to deal with it. I was like, I shouldn't have this to spend. I should put it somewhere. I should invest it somewhere, but I don't know where to do that, how to monitor that. And I get quarterly statements, and I don't even open the emails. It's out of sight, out of mind. I see the subject line, and I just put my fingers in my ears. I don't want to know anything about it, which is foolish. It's $40,000. I should want to know how that is growing or diminishing. I don't know what's happening with it. I might have nothing at this moment. I have no idea. I can't be bothered to look. My disgust for numbers combined with my disgust for customer service calls, it's a bad combination. I get random fees racking up on my checking account all the time, and I don't fight them. My wife gets fees as well. She fights them tooth and nail. She fights every last dime, and rightfully so. I'm out of sight, out of mind. I don't want to even fucking think about it. She'd be like, what's this? What's the $12 for what? I'm like, I'm sure I did something terrible to deserve that. Just forget it. Just hit fast cash. Let's get out of here. School was brutal for me in terms of math, and my parents didn't care. I didn't get any help or assistance or tutoring because school was just something to get through. Jehovah's Witness shit was really all that mattered. Reading, studying, memorizing Jehovah's Witness propaganda, that's where the action was. They just wanted me to get through high school, get a manual labor job, so I would be a penniless simpleton who devoted all his time to the Christian ministry. That's what Jehovah wants. He just wants empty-headed sheep with no critical thinking skills, people that don't question anything. Those are the prime candidates for the Jehovah's Witness organization. So, struggling in school, great. That's right where you want to be. You got a D in algebra, you're right on track, buddy. I did get a D in algebra in seventh grade. I had to work for that D too. I actually got a 64. I had to beg my teacher for that extra point. Miss Bovin was her name. Very tragic case. Unfortunate looking woman, as my mom would say. Again, I thought dyslexia was a tactful way of calling somebody retarded. Unfortunate looking is a tactful way of calling somebody highly unattractive. She was a very strange looking character. She had a gimpy leg from polio that she had as a child. So you imagine seventh graders dealing with a teacher like this. Miss Bovin with a limp. People called her Miss Bovine and mooed when she walked. It was heartbreaking to watch this woman in action. But I had to beg her. I had to beg her for a week straight to give me that extra point to pass me. When in retrospect, I don't think I needed to beg her. I could have just bribed her. Like, hey, Miss Bovin, I'll give you piggybacks to your car for a whole week for 1 point. What do you say? I think she would have gone for it. But reading and writing for me was never a problem. That was actually always my strength. Although I've never liked reading. I just started reading for pleasure this year. I've had a very negative connotation with reading my whole adult life because of those formative years, those 20 years in the Jehovah's Witness organization. There was so much preparation that went into these meetings that all books now have a negative connotation. I look at any book, even a book that's, subject matter that I'm interested in. I think, stay away from that. That's brainwash. I'm not falling for that. Because when you go to these meetings, you have to prepare so much. It's like night school. You have to underline. You're reading Bible passages. You're reading passages from other publications. They have an entire library of publications, probably over 100 books by my estimation. It might even be more than that now. But you have to underline, write in the margins, study, memorize. You have to be prepared to engage in a discussion about the material. There are questions asked of you by the elders. Elders standing at the podium will ask the congregation questions. You have to be prepared to answer. There's a lot of preparation that goes into it. And it was worse than school. Way worse than school. At least school, you're learning something potentially useful. This was just, you're being brainwashed. It was a soul-crushing place to be at these meetings. I remember Columbine happened when I was 16 years old. I remember thinking, God damn it, why could those dudes have hit my Kingdom Hall first? Please put me out of my misery. We had these Bibles, these beautiful leather-bound Bibles with these gilded pages, and they had these long 8-inch string bookmarks. And I used to be so bored at these meetings. I would prepare for them, and then I would just zone out, just daydreaming. And I would get so bored that I would put the end of the string in my mouth, and I would slurp it down like a strand of spaghetti, all the way down until the spine of the book. This bookmark was like balls deep. And then I would just slowly pull it back out again. Then I would slurp it down again, and then slowly pull it back out. I did this for hours, just out of boredom. And my mom she would become infuriated, just gritting her teeth. Show some respect. She's trying to save me from Armageddon. I'm practicing for a porn career in front of her eyes. She's always telling me, you gotta take God's word to heart. I'm like, well, once the string gets all the way down there, it's pretty close. It's pretty close. So, I never thought that I would become a reader, but here I am again, trying to read for pleasure. It's not easy, but I have a great conversation with Phil about dyslexia, about reading. I'm assuming he's reading now as well. I do know he's writing. He actually, as soon as we wrapped this conversation, he got back to his book. He's working on a book as we speak. Who'da thunk? Certainly not his teachers. Never thought this guy would amount to anything. Now he's one of the top comics and he's writing a book. So we have a great conversation about his dyslexia, and my son as well is in the same camp. He's in second grade. He is dyslexic. Luckily, he's getting the services and attention needed to deal with it. But it was great talking to Phil. So without further ado, please enjoy my conversation with Phil Hanley. This is Jehovah's Day. Congrats on the special. I finished watching it last night. And
cool. Thank you.
It's fantastic. It really is.
Thank you. Yeah, ooh la la on YouTube. I'm just trying to get views. I think it's doing pretty well. It's so hard to tell. You know what I mean? But I'm getting positive feedback.
I was, I love to get lost in the comment section, and people. I love seeing people discover somebody that they feel like, where has this guy been all my life? You know, and I love reading comments from people that are like, because there's so much content on Netflix, there's so many specials on various streaming platforms. So there's certain comics that are just, you know, in the nomenclature, I guess you would say, that you're just, you know, you're exposed to, you know, their name, but you know, they're not all the best. And so when you see somebody who's maybe kind of still coming up through the ranks and maybe not a household name yet, and they fucking blow everybody else out of the water, and seeing these comments like, where has this guy been? Why isn't he on all the platforms? It's very refreshing.
Yeah, it's like, I've been playing mini malls within 5 miles of your house for 16 years. I've been so close to you. Yeah, it's nice to read anything positive like that. But I think it's like, I mean, with comedy, it's just like, it's like music. A lot of what people know about comics is what is on Netflix, or what it's basically just turning on FM radio to, you know what I mean? That's what they're being exposed to. And some of them are great. You know what I mean? Sometimes you hear the Rolling Stones, and then sometimes you hear something that's just not your taste in music or whatever. And people hear that and they're like, oh, I don't really like stand up. You're like, no, that's just one human. That's their you know what I mean? It's so different. So, it's so, now you just put out these things. Specials now are almost like infomercials to your live show. Like, I just want to sell tickets, you know?
Yeah.
So well, hopefully that'll happen.
It seems to be leading in that direction.
Oh, good. Right on. Thanks, man.
So I was trying to figure out where you record. Did you do it at Village Underground?
I did it at the Village Underground. I had an idea for what I wanted for the backdrop, and they did a really good job. The people that did the special did a really good job of changing. They made the stage a little bigger. They did that backdrop that was crazy expensive. I didn't know. I was like, oh, this is what I want for the backdrop. They're like, totally, we'll do that. And then I got the bill. I was like, good God. But
yeah. What was it? It looked like a painted canvas. Was it not?
Yeah, it's like a painted canvas that almost looks like it's like a what's the word, gradient? It's like a gradient, a half circle, but it was expensive.
Jesus.
But it doesn't look like the VU, which the VU is a venue. It's a Comedy Cellar venue, and a lot of specials have been filmed there, like probably 10 or something. And I didn't want it to look like the VU, so.
Well, it looks great, dude, and like the way. You know, I've been a fan of your stand-up for a long time, but I feel like I hadn't seen you do a set in a while. So it was nice to take a deep dive and watch you do an hour. And the way that you are able to jump in and out of jokes and crowd work effortlessly is crazy, dude. It really is. It's like there's no...
Oh, thanks.
There's no, like, usually something is lacking with a comic. You know, either their jokes are killer, but their crowd work's a little... you know, subpar, or all they have is crowd work, and then they go into material, and it's like, you gotta fucking learn to write,
go
dude.
back to birthdays.
Yeah. Go back to making fun of this guy's shirt, please.
Yeah.
But it kind of ping-pongs between the two throughout the special, which in such a way where there's something about it that feels very inclusive, but at the same time, like, I know there's this whole thing now with the way that crowdwork clips are blowing up, and that almost seems to be, I was talking about this with somebody the other day, it almost seems to be like the new roast battle. Remember how roast battles were that was like it in the comedy world.
Yeah, that was how you're going to make it.
A fad. It was like, God, I can't wait till this dies out. You know,
yeah,
this is not sustainable. It has its place, but it's not sustainable forever. And that's the way I feel about crowdwork too. It's like there's more to comedy than just shitting on the audience.
100%. I will say with the roast battle thing is, I understood why it was entertaining and all this stuff, but I wanted it to pass just because it was a way people were getting a lot of like heat from it, or like, you know, again, selling tickets from doing it. And it just wasn't me. Like, there's no way I could say those things. It just wasn't mine. Yeah. And some of the people like I was like they'd be like, that is a killer joke. Like, that's great writing, but it wasn't something that I wanted to do. But yeah, like people are like shitting on crowdwork clips, and sometimes you watch them and you're like, why did you post that? That wasn't anything there. Like, I do crowdwork. It's my favorite part of it when I'm, you know, doing a long set on the road, because I'm in the moment and I try to tie everything together. And but I wouldn't post, and I post clips because I'm, you know, you try not to burn material, but I wouldn't post something it's still a setup and a punchline. It's just, but some of these clips, I understand some people are just like, oh, I said that to the person, and that's got to be a clip. You're like, well, no, you just had a conversation. You did have a microphone. I will give you that. And there was a comedy club sign in the background. So I understand why, you know, I understand. I mean, and don't get me wrong. I don't post I post, you know, if I do a long set, I might get a couple clips. I'm not posting I don't know, whatever. But people are really angry. I guess I don't follow that. I don't see that much.
Yeah.
On whoever I follow. I guess I don't follow enough comics or whatever. I don't know. The people that I see post crowdwork, it's funny, but I don't know. I guess
most of the time it is, but I think there's a whole crop of younger comics now that are trying to, you know, keep up and also be contributing content and posting reels that they don't have that skill set yet, you know? And I think it's leading a lot of people. Here's the thing, like, it's one thing for comics to be like, oh, fuck, enough of the crowd. We're always going to find a way to shit on everything. I think a lot of audiences now are starting to get tired of it because it seems to kind of be changing the dynamic of how a crowd expects a show to go, you know?
Yeah.
And a lot of crowds now will show up and be like, oh, they're just going to, hey, call on me, make fun of me. And it's like, no, they have the microphone. They've been writing and working on these bits for years and years and years. It's not all about you. So don't try to make this a fucking crazy free for all. Yeah. You know, just call and response sort of thing.
Well, I had a interesting thing happen. I was on the road. This was maybe 2 months ago or 3 months ago, and it was my first night at this club. And I go on. And I walked out, and to someone who doesn't do stand-up, it doesn't make sense, but you'll understand this. I walked out, I looked at the crowd, I started, and I could tell there was a guy in the front row that was there for me to do crowd work with. He was wearing a really loud Western shirt. He immediately tried, like, and I, within 3 minutes, was like, oh, dude, this is not how it works. Like, I did my best to make it funny, but I explained that this isn't going to go down, you know?
Yeah.
And in my head, I was like, this is crazy, because I had posted a lot of crowd work. I had a bit of a jump on my social media stuff, and I was told by the club that there were more tickets sold than the last time. And I was like, this is it. I've just destroyed my life, because this is what's going to happen now. Because I hadn't been on the road for a couple months or like a month or whatever. And I was like, people are now going to come. But that hasn't happened. That only happened once. And I ignored him the whole time. The show was fine. And at the very end, like I had like one bit to do. I acknowledged him. and he proved my theory because he stood up and raised his arms and did like turn to the crowd. I was like, how delusional are you that people are like, finally the guy in the Western shirt's going to have his time in the sun. But yeah. So I had this moment. I was like, that's it. I've destroyed, like, I can't do crowd work anymore. And, but that's only happened that once. So I don't really see, people aren't engaging me any more than they have in the past. So I haven't seen that myself, but that is the fear,
Yeah.
But, I think it's a trend. It's a weird thing with, we were just talking before we started recording how we're both not computer people. These younger comics, and even like my nephew's like 14, and he's like a really good skateboarder, and he like edits these clips on his phone. It's insane. It's like Scorsese quality cinematography, and he's just bang, 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 and it's like up. So I think it's tough because their skills, like editing and just the way they understand how social media works, might be ahead of where they are in comedy, because it just takes a long time. Like, I'm not like when you were saying that people are like, where has this guy been? I'm like, yeah, I've been holding back because I have so much respect for the comics that I look up to and how long it took them, that I was like, yeah, I'm not putting a ton of stuff out. I'm not turning down opportunities, but I'm like, I'm not posting on social media until I get to a place where I'm like, oh, this is good enough to start sharing. And I feel like people are like, oh, this is my sixth cent. I gotta, you know what I mean? I really gotta clip this up. And it's like, no, do that for years and then introduce yourself. You know what I mean? Social media is not going anywhere. There's no rush.
It's never the wrong move to be the dark horse waiting in the wings and just fucking explode out the gate and blow people's minds. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I remember, like, and I always think about it, because you're watching other people get stuff and you get frustrated or whatever. But I remember listening to a Jim Gaffigan interview, and someone asked him, like, and I heard that, like, this was like right when I was like beginning. Someone asked him, how did you feel when you did your first Letterman? And Gaffigan was like, I was so ready because I'd watched all my friends already do it. And I was like, ready. And I'm like, that's, to me, obviously, if you get an amazing opportunity out of the gates, that's great. But there is something very valuable in, having other people do it before you, because you just have it in your head that you can do it, and I think you'll make more of it. It's all about making a great first impression, so much of it,
Sure.
And so I my advice to people starting out, if anyone wants it, would be wait before you start. People are posting their first sets. I'm like, that footage should be like in a safe or in the river. Like, don't want me to see your first set. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a hard skill. No one is great right away,
Yeah. What happened to shame? You know what I mean? We need to bring back shame.
What happened to shame?
The shame of your first 5 years at least.
Absolutely.
Nobody should see any of that shit.
Because, like, historically through comedy, who was great when they were super young? Like Chappelle, who was, kind of had mastered the craft to a certain extent. Eddie Murphy, who, like, he was really young when he was recording those specials. But, like, beyond that, I'm sure I'm missing a ton of people. But generally, comics, it takes a long time, like 15 years. Like 15 years. In my mind, I was always like, get to 7. And then I got to 7. I'm like, get to 15. And now I'll be at the cellar and see someone who's been doing it 25 and be like, oh God, I got to get to 25. It's, I don't know. I think that's kind of been lost.
Yeah. And we started out in a different climate where it was just about not sucking. You know what I mean? Nobody was posting videos, like you would try to get tape to send out to bookers to try to get booked, but you weren't just shitting out content endlessly. Nobody had to see you bomb. That was, 15, 20 people were privy to that information.
Or even in clubs, like now every club tapes sets for you and all this stuff. And, like we would, like, to get a tape when I started, you would have to get, you would have to get a friend who had a video camera to come, and he had a fucking tripod and a giant case. Like, it was wild how quickly, I mean, now people can just tape everything, but I would really encourage people to wait and make a really great first impression.
Yeah, agreed. So in this special, you talk a lot about dyslexia, which I wanted to talk. I want to get in. I want to take a deep dive on this because my son is 7. He's in 2nd grade, and he has not. They have not used the D word yet, but only used the R word. No, they. I
got the R word. I did.
Did you?
Yeah. Like they thought teachers thought I was dumb or lazy, and So you think your son might be dyslexic?
So he has gone through several evaluations now, and he has an IEP, which for those that don't know is an individualized education program. And he's in a school right now that's great. It's amazing. We had him at another school. We moved him to this one because it's much more catered to kids with learning disabilities. And he's it's easy to say this because I'm his dad. He's a really, really intelligent, articulate kid, fantastic artist. He's really, really bright. But in terms of his reading and writing capabilities, there's a block there. So we had him evaluated, and he's now going to be starting speech and occupational therapy because there's a lot of letter reversal with numbers and letters. Actually, he'll read words backwards sometimes, and it's hard. It's really hard to see him struggling with that. And thank God he's kind of getting the help that he needs and kind of getting clearly diagnosed now, because last year it kind of flew under the radar. And I was thinking like you were, I was like, this kid is just lazy. He can't focus. Like, what the fuck is going on here? And there was a solid year of me sitting down to do his homework with him and just riding his ass and just really kind of cracking the whip, be like, come on, man, let's And now I feel so terribly guilty that I was pushing this kid to do something that he literally was not capable of,
Yeah.
So he's now getting these services and he's making vast improvements. It's amazing to see. But how did it look with you? When did you get diagnosed with dyslexia? How long were you struggling before they actually were able to step in and help you out?
Well, first off, I would say it sounds, and it's not even a great thing to do for a parent who suspects that their child might be dyslexic, is in the Malcolm Gladwell book, David and Goliath, he does a chapter on dyslexics. And I would recommend any parent who thinks their kid might to read that, because you're like, oh, my child is going to be fine. Like, because we have dyslexics, we have a certain set of skills. But to answer your question, I know kindergarten was great. I sounded like your son. I was like articulate and made friends, and like the review in kindergarten was great. And I arrived in the 1st grade and it was just like, oh my God. Like, it was just such a wake up to such a brutal reality, because suddenly people were reading and writing, and it just wasn't happening for me. And I went from like, there was like the A word group and the B word group. And then all of a sudden there's like a new group, the C word group, which I have a joke where I'm like, my 1st grade teacher named it after herself. But the C word group, George laughed. She put my desk at the back of the classroom facing the wall because, she thought I was distracted or I was lazy. I was like, and my mom had worked with kids with disabilities. That was her job, but more severe than dyslexia disabilities. So my mom just knew something was up, because she knew that I could, communicate and socialize with adults and carry on conversations. And they just tested me. But the test for a dyslexic kid is if you read your son a story and asked him questions about it, and I would bet that he'd get all the questions correct. And then if he had to read the story and then answer questions, I know when I was his age, I would get all the questions wrong.
Yeah.
He's dyslexic. Like, they do all these testing and stuff like that. If your son is like a a bright kid that understands things and is engaged in different things that don't involve reading and interested in all the stuff, then he's dyslexic, and it means he's above average intelligence, but he's going to struggle with that. And I work for, and I'm actually, it sounds funny I was in special ed all through school, and it's funny now that I can say this, but I'm on the board of an organization called Eye to Eye, which is a big organization that advocates for kids with disabilities, particularly ADHD and dyslexia. And it's like they were like nominated last year for the CNN Heroes Award, the guy David that started it and stuff. And he was saying like, it's like, we're not going to teach your kids to read, but the big thing is maintaining their self-esteem, because it goes pretty quick when you're watching 30 kids do exactly what you're trying to do and you just can't do it. And society measures intelligence in reading. Like, you see if a guy's holding a stack of books or a woman's holding a stack of books like this, you're like, oh, they must be smart. You know what I mean? Like, it's really attached. So it's just maintaining self-esteem. And somehow, although I definitely have scars from my schooling experience, my parents were able to like maintain that throughout the whole thing. But to answer your question, it took years, I think. And probably when I got to the 4th grade, they finally said I was dyslexic. But my mom was on them, and we were like, I'm from a suburb of Toronto. We would drive into Toronto for testing, and we would, I had to go to all these tutors and all this stuff for them to finally be like, yeah, okay, he has a learning disability. But they're really quick to assume you're slow or lazy or not bright.
Oh, it's infuriating as a parent too, because now through enough testing they were able to actually kind of pinpoint what he needs help with. But a lot of these evaluations that we would get back from the school psychologist or whatever, you would see verbatim, below average intelligence, and it's like a fucking dagger through the heart. It's like, oh my God, and it's not true, but to see somebody else, a third party, saying that about your child is like, could it be? Is he doomed to have a life of struggle? Am I raising a fucking Forrest Gump here? But you know deep down that that's not the case. It's like all you have to do is talk to this kid for 5 minutes. He's an amazing storyteller. He's so observant, picks up on all these details. There's just this block here, But thankfully, this school that he's in, like I said, it really caters to kids with disabilities, so much so that it's kind of the norm, and it's hilarious to hear them talking amongst themselves because they're not embarrassed about it at all. Like, I heard him and one of his buddies talking the other day. They all have speech impediments, and one of his buddies was like, I have ADHD and Asperger's. Do you have Asperger's? You don't have Asperger's? I have Asperger's. That's not so bad, And it's like they're owning it. They're not ashamed of it. They know that it's just part of being a unique individual,
Yeah, that's huge, and that's what it is. Like, why would you? It's, and there are people in the know, like the brightest people are now. You hear stories and hear things about like putting together companies and wanting a dyslexic to be in charge of the group, because we think dyslexics, we think big picture. And there's, I'm fascinated in the topic now. When I was a kid, I was like, I don't want to hear about it. And my mom became an expert. And I just was like, I just wanted to pretend it wasn't happening. I was in special ed, and the most humiliating things for me would be like the school assemblies, because all the classes would fill up, and then all of a sudden, like 6 of us would roll in. Like, it was so obvious that it was a special class because we weren't in a group of 30. And I would like try to hang back, and it was just, it was rough. But now, so I read these books, and our brains work differently. When a non-dyslexic reads, it's like engages like the front part of the brain. When a dyslexic reads, it's like in the back, and it's like there's like synapses occur like at further distances in a dyslexic brain. Like it's a totally different thing, and our brains are not set up for the way the school system is, and then they're perplexed why we're struggling. But it's like everyone's driving a race car on a racetrack, and then one dude's driving a Jeep, 4-wheel drive, and you're like, why is that guy never winning the race? Like, he's just not designed for this, dickhead. He's supposed to be in a dirt track. Put the race car in a dirt track and see what happens. Like, it's just not designed for us. So it's all about maintaining the kids' self-esteem, because they will excel when they get out of the school system. But it sounds like that with your son, like a 7-year-old that's a good storyteller. How gifted is that child? You know what I mean? Isn't that more valuable than, or like a bigger sign of intelligence than if he got 10 out of 10 being able to spell like moon and apple and whatever the spelling is? You know what I mean? Those are, by the way, words that I struggle with to this day. But but yeah, I don't know. I really worry about kids, because the statistics of people in prison with learning disabilities is so high. And as someone that went through it, I get it, because you're pissed off, you're mistreated in school. It's so tedious. You're belittled all the time. And then at 3:30, of course, you're going to shoplift something or get in a fight or whatever, and I see how it could lead to kids getting in trouble. So as long as parents like you understand and kind of like celebrate it and reinforce what the kid is good at, you know?
And yeah, I mean, like what the school I went to was not integrated the way it is now. Like every single classroom in the school that he's in now has kids with learning disabilities. It's I'm blanking on the terminology they use, but it's like a 60-40 split between gen ed and special ed in every single class.
Wow, that's great.
And every single class has one main teacher, one para, and it's small classes too. It's like 15 kids for 3 teachers, actually. It's amazing. So they get real hands-on. Yeah, it's incredible.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, so he's really getting the help that he needs. But yeah, the school that I went to, there was a couple of special ed classes, and you knew those kids.
There was such a stigma.
I remember seeing those kids trickle into assemblies, and yeah, there is a stigma. They're not part of the group. They're like, oh, it's there's us and there's those guys, and that's got to be brutal to deal with.
Brutal. When I got the diagnosis, like when they told me, so it started, and you would just have like. They would have like some, not even a teacher, but like some volunteer would come in and like try to help me read or whatever. And I can't read. I can read words that I've memorized over my whole life. But when you're 8, I had memorized like 4 words. You know what I mean? Yeah. So they would just have to help me. And then by the end of the 4th grade, they like sat me down and told me that I was going to be in special ed. And I was just devastated, because there wasn't that thing where now it's kind of more celebrated if you're different or if you think differently or whatever. But back then, you did not want to be in special ed. You did not want to be on the short bus. You did not want to be part of that group, because you knew that there was something wrong. And yeah, it was tough.
And it's such an antiquated kind of arbitrary system too. It's all geared toward standardized testing and basically contributing toward the greater good of the school. Like how is your student body as a whole performing at this school?
Yeah.
And if you're a weak link, we got to have you catch up and be part of the pack. And they're not embracing the strengths that you have as an individual, your creative side, or all these other aspects that are a real skill set that these other kids that may be performing well academically don't have.
Absolutely. And that's that is the thing with dyslexics, and there's another thing where which I would be so heartbreaking, and I feel so bad for these kids. Some parents don't just want their kid to be normal and refuse to kind of embrace that they are dyslexic or whatever. But I mean, if you look at I feel like if a child's dyslexic, and again, the parent can maintain their self-esteem throughout school, I mean, they're a coiled spring, because school sucks so bad. And when you're done, you're going to excel at. And just like you look like the people that are dyslexic, it's like Richard Branson, who is like, so successful. I think there's like 3 or like over half, I believe, of like the people on Shark Tank are dyslexic, these like entrepreneurs. And we do have a skill set. It just does not apply to the schooling system now. And for me, it also affected like eye-hand coordination a little bit too. So I was good at nothing. Like I was bad at sports, bad at school, good at socializing, I guess. But it's weird because that's not something you can measure,
Yeah.
When I was a kid, it's like, but.
Your report card. Phil has the most friends.
Yeah. No, but that would be the comments. And my parents would say, well, my mom is like an absolute saint of a woman. And my parents didn't care about my grades because they were like D, E, D, E, C in gym, D, E. And then I would get a good mark. I'd get maybe like a B in art. And the reason I wouldn't get an A would be there'd be one assignment where I had to like write a paragraph, and I'd get a 0 on that. And then they would just, all my parents cared about were the comments. Like I would get in trouble if it was like, but it as long as it was like, Phil like works well with others or whatever. That's all. They, at a very young age, my mom said, we're not going to pay attention to the grades, but you have to behave yourself, basically.
Well, what I was thinking while I was watching your special was like, I was thinking it's amazing that this guy is dyslexic when he has a real mastery of the English language, like like real word economy. The way that you are able to play with language is, I would never equate the two. I would never think that somebody that has dyslexia would be able to write, because I'm assuming you do. I'm assuming you're not just, coming up with shit off the top of your head. You're writing jokes, It's amazing somebody with severe dyslexia can still conceptualize words and language like that.
Oh, thanks. Like, my set lists or notes are always mocked by other comics because my spelling is so, like, for example, the word dyslexia, and that comes up frequently in my act. I never spell it the same way twice. Like I kind of I know it's a D and there's a Y and an S, and then I just start bebopping and scatting. Like I'm just throwing in letters. I don't know what the hell's going down. But I appreciate you saying that. For some reason, there are comics that don't write anything down, that just kind of, for some reason, and I think part of it is because school was so hard, I kind of always just do whatever is going to be the biggest pain in the ass for me. But I do, like I write out words, and for years I had a certain number of words where I wanted there's a certain number of lines where I wanted the punchline, and now I don't really pay as much attention to that. I think it's kind of just ingrained, but I write everything out, and it's quite tedious,
Yeah, I can imagine. So this is not something. So you were in special ed all through school, like you graduated high school, all the special ed classes the whole way through.
Yeah, I was in. So I had they were truly perplexed at what the hell was going on up until the 4th grade. So I would be like in class, and then they would like take me out, and I would work with like the learning resource person or whatever. And then eventually they put me in special ed for the 4th grade. And then I came back to I thought I was 4th grade. The special ed class was so bad that it was like really far from my house. And the teacher was like, we did like a weaving unit, and my parents were just like, your life is hell, and this weaving is not going to, like, this is pointless. We did a whole unit on Christmas carols. Like, it was just babysitting really for kids that were 10 or how old you are in 5th grade. So then they put me back in regular class, and I thought, I am cured. And then 7th, 8th was special ed. And then, all through high school. I think by the time I was in high school, they didn't call it special ed anymore. I think they called it like an aid class or something. But I was in, I'd go like one period normal, and then one period with a teacher.
So when you first found out that you were getting put in special ed, you said that was 4th grade?
Yeah. It was the end of the 4th grade, and I was like devastated.
Yeah. So that's what I was going to ask. So you did not. I'm hoping that you felt some support either from your school or your parents over time, but initially it was shame, I imagine, right?
So much shame,
feeling behind, and it sounds like this one special ed class was complete horse shit. So it sounds like you didn't even necessarily feel supported. You probably didn't even feel like, oh, they're gonna help me. I'm gonna recover from this. Did you feel like I'm doomed to this for the rest of my life?
I did. I felt like when I think of my like childhood as far as schools involved, which is a majority, it's like most of your life, you know what I mean, when you're a kid.
Yeah.
It feels like a Dickens play to me. Like I think my memories of it are like, it feels like black and white. Like it was really grim, and I would just look forward to the weekends, and I think Gary Goldman has a joke about it, but I remember like Sunday mornings, it would just be like, oh fuck, I got to go back tomorrow. And then the 60-minute theme that like tick, 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 tick. And you're just like, oh, horrible. I don't think Gary's talking about the end of the weekend. I think his reference is to him wanting to watch something else on TV or something. But for me, it would just be so depressing. Or like my mom would, when all the back to school sales started in August, my mom would like try to like hide the papers or whatever, because she knew that would like, I would be so sad that it was like I had to go back.
So you talk a lot about your acid use in this special. I don't know if I say a lot, but you allude to the fact that you've done a pretty extensive amount of acid in your days on this earth. And did that start in high school? Did that start like, was that a way to kind of escape the way that you were feeling about yourself in school, or what led you to that?
Well, it's funny because I started doing acid really young. I think the summer before high school I did acid for the first time, and it was really young. I had older friends, and I had, we had like smoked weed or whatever, but acid was like, again, when I was growing up, like there wasn't all these like really drugs where people are dying and all that horrific stuff you hear about. But acid was like the strongest thing you could get. And it was like what kind of bad kids did. And I did it, and it just agreed with me. And I don't encourage people to take LSD, because I grew up with people who I didn't agree with, and they didn't necessarily bounce back immediately. So for me, it agreed with me. And ironically, I love the Grateful Dead, and a lot of my heroes took a lot of LSD and stuff. So, but I took it, and I had a blast, and then I took it a lot. And I always felt a little dirty about it, because like, even like my friends' older brothers who would like talk to their brothers and be like, talk to the younger brothers and be like, you hang out with like Phil Hanley, and like I heard he does like acid, like, it was like a stigma, and there was some shame in that too. And then like years later, I was in therapy, and I told the therapist this, and the therapist was like, of course you took acid. Like, he'd already heard about my schooling experiences. Like, you needed a release, and it's such a human desire to need some release from your reality. It was so dark and felt so endless, and you got this thing that was, the most release from reality. I mean, LSD, really, you do leave reality behind. So, and like that, I no longer felt shame or guilt about it. It just made sense, but I didn't have that perspective myself. I didn't know why I was so compelled to take acid. I would take it and go to a party, and I'd be the only one tripping out. Like, it was, and I had a blast, but it was such a fucking, it was so far from the boredom that I felt sitting in class and pretending to read. I would pick like a mediocre reader and use them as my pace car, And when they would flip a page, I would flip a page. But I wouldn't be reading. I would just be staring. It was so monotonous. And then I would listen to these people talk about what they read, and I'd have no idea. Like, I didn't know anything. It was just so boring, you know? It's like if you were hanging out with two Japanese friends and the Japanese friends start having a conversation in Japanese, and you're like, and you seem engaged. You're like, what are they talking about? That was what school was like for me from first grade to grade 12.
Yeah, that's how I feel when people start talking about sports. I just stand there and I smile. Hey, all right, I feel very excluded right now. It's tough. So if I'm wondering though, if you felt this stigma with this dyslexia, you felt like kind of an outcast, you were in special ed classes, everybody knew it. Did you feel like part of the acid thing too was like, all right, if I'm going to be this weird kid, or everybody thinks I'm this lazy kid or this fuck up, I'm just going to lean into that. I'm just going to lean. Now everybody knows I do acid. I'm just going to double down on being the outcast.
I've never thought that, but as you were asking that question, I'm sure that was me. There was something empowering being like, I'm going to be different. And now it's not because I had this like what felt like a curse of not being able to read. I'm going to be different by, putting this little piece of LSD in my mouth. But I did, my friends I did have friends that would do it with me sometimes, but I really fully embraced it,
Yeah.
But I think you're right. I think you nailed it.
Yeah. I have still never done acid. I am a big proponent of psychedelics, as is my wife. She's actually, can't wait for legalization of everything to really be able to incorporate it into therapy, because she really believes in MDMA treatments, psilocybin treatments. It's a game changer for a lot of people dealing with traumatic circumstances. Yeah. I was telling George the other day, like my thing with mushrooms now, I think the first time I did it was, I don't know, probably 10 years ago in a park with buddies in broad daylight. And it was just a blast. I just remember the whole world opened up to me. And the next few trips were great. And then I got cocky with it and I started doing it at bars while drinking. And I had a couple of real fucking freakouts with just angry, hateful voices in my head. I swore off of them completely. Now I approach it from a much more therapeutic standpoint, where I'll take a pretty major dose and just lie on the floor with an eye mask and just let myself go for 4 hours, But acid...
Oh, that's great.
Acid I've still never done. I did a show up in the Berkshires last fall where the owners of the venue were a very, very sweet couple. After they paid me, they gave me a balled up thing of aluminum foil, and I was like, what's this? And the guy's like, they're acid dipped gummy worms. And I was like, oh boy, I still have them in my drawer. I haven't touched them because one of my buddies was like, just take half, see how it goes. It's like, I don't know which half of the gummy worm got dipped in that. What if I take the one half that has all of it? You know what I mean?
Yeah. You want it. Yeah. It's funny. I mean, when growing up in my hometown, you could get what we called grease, which was like oil. Like you never like oil or hash. You never got like the leafy like buds or whatever. And you could always get acid. You'd go to the bus station or the arcade. You could get LSD, and mushrooms were this exotic thing. So I finally did mushrooms, and the difference between acid and mushrooms would be like the difference between drinking a cup of English breakfast tea or drinking coffee, or the difference between getting drunk on beer or getting drunk on Jack Daniels. Like it's just a little stronger. But something like liquid dipped gummy worms are dangerous. You want to know what you're taking. That, like, to me, that would be. I mean, I'm sure when I was doing it when I was a teenager, I would have been all for a liquid dipped, whatever.
Yeah.
But, acid dipped, whatever. But it's funny. I don't really do. I did a little bit of microdosing during the pandemic and enjoyed it. But I'm like, as soon as I finished school, I've had big nights or done drugs since then, but really I didn't need it. I needed that release during school. And then after that, I really didn't need it. And, like I can go, I feel like I've done enough that I I can almost enjoy and experiencing knowing what it would be like if I was tripping out. Like I still I've seen different carnations of the Grateful Dead probably 200 times, and I rarely do I take anything now. Like I don't even have smoke a joint. I might take one puff or have a beer, but I can just enjoy things without that. I feel like I kind of did enough at the time. But what you're doing sounds very appealing. Eye mask on the floor, listen to tunes. God, that sounds great.
It's intense, man. It's intense. But that's the reason I do it now. It really is like a therapeutic thing. Like whatever dormant thoughts that I am kind of running from in my day-to-day life, it's like facing it head on. You know what I mean? No more turning a blind eye to it. I want to see exactly what's there so I can deal with it. Because therapy is helpful. I've been in therapy for 13 years now, and it's extremely helpful, but it's almost, I don't know if I'd call it a shortcut, but it's almost like an accelerated course in therapy. And you still have to process whatever comes up during these trips in therapy is what I do. But it really, everything that you're able to kind of deny or kind of diminish, it just floods to the surface, and you really are able to see things, right in front of your fucking face.
Did you have any guidance on this, or were you just like?
Again, my wife is. And she's a pretty straight edge person. Like when I was drinking, she would drink kind of to keep up with me. But then I have not had a drink in 3 years. And I notice now how little she drinks, because she never drinks. She partied a bit in college, but she's not a partier at all. But she really, she did mushrooms for the first time after I did. And I told her about, it's this thrilling, wonderful, magical experience. So she was intrigued, she did it, and then she heard about all these treatments with, veterans and victims of various levels of abuse or trauma, and them doing it in more of a therapeutic type setting and really seeing a lot of benefits and help. So she was really the one that kind of steered me in that direction to kind of be like, it can be cool to go to a park or go to a concert, but like if you really want to deal with shit head on with no distractions, just really lean into it and just let yourself go.
Wow.
And it's great, but it's scary. It's scary. It really is. And I've done it countless times, but you never know what's going to come up.
It's scary me hearing about it. Like right now, because I think there are things that you push that, you know what I mean? Like there are things where, like when you're just there with your thoughts, I could see how you figure it out. And I have had friends who have, not necessarily done what you're talking about deliberately, but like been having a bad trip and kind of locked themselves in their room and then emerged 8 hours later with less of a problem with whatever, you know what I mean? They're just kind of forced to face it.
Yeah. And for me, what can also add to the scare factor is the fact that, I'm not a single man anymore. I have certain responsibilities. I have a wife and a son to care for that their safety is priority number one. So like the last trip I did in the middle of the day while my son was at school, and it was terrible because I kept thinking about how many hours do I have before I'm able to sober up before I go pick him up from school? You know what I mean? I don't still want to be in a tripped out headspace. So I was almost kind of rushing the process, and it was a bad experience. To not really be able to be present in it, to be like, come on, when's this going to get out of my system? Let's fucking go. I got shit to take care of. So now, and I can also, I don't know if you've ever felt this. One of my biggest fears, and this is the reason I haven't touched those acid dip gummy worms, is because I know acid can potentially be a much longer trip. My biggest fear is being deep in the throes of some psychedelic trip and getting some sort of phone call with tragic news, and finding out like my dad is dead or something, and being like, oh my God, I'll be there in a half an hour. And then 6 hours later, I'm still like fumbling for my fucking car key,
Yeah. We're in a tie-dye.
Like, I need to know that like my immediate circle is safe. So now when I do these mushroom trips, I usually do them at night. I'll take a dose at like 9 o'clock when I know everybody's home, safe, in bed, And that really allows me to kind of like settle into it without any real worry. And, some fucking intruder could kick the door in and gun us all down. I'm like, whoa, dude, whatever position you can put yourself in to really feel as safe as possible and allow yourself to kind of surrender to the experience is, for me personally, that's what is most beneficial.
Yeah, I could totally see that. Yeah, acid on paper, like the dude that's selling it will tell you that it lasts 8 hours, but it does kind of, yeah. I mean, you hear about these trips that people went on in the 60s and they're like, 3 days and all that stuff.
Right.
But, I don't know. And I guess it's just things seem tripped out, but I remember when I would I would tell my parents that, I was working on a project in high school or whatever. And by that time, they knew that, I wasn't, going to really excel, in like higher education type thing. So I think they were fine with, okay, dear, like and we would take acid and just like skateboard around my hometown all night. Like it was just so beautiful. These nights are so incredible. Yeah, I think that's amazing that you do that. I could see that really being helpful in problem solving. But I guess maybe I'm hypocritical, but I would never recommend like people, like even that. I think some people would not. That could be very intense. I would not recommend that too.
Yeah, no, I know. I should issue a disclaimer here. It's definitely not for everybody. There's some people that should be afraid of their own thoughts.
Yeah, it just doesn't agree with everybody. It, for some reason, and I get paranoid smoking weed. I didn't always, but by the end of high school, I would get like really in my head just smoking weed. But for some reason, LSD and mushrooms, mostly acid is what I'm experienced with, but just agreed with me. I never had bad trips. I was certainly with people while they had bad trips. And no, I just always rode it, was fine.
Yeah. And I always grew up terrified of it because my older cousin was definitely it went more down I don't know if I'd say, I don't want to call you a hippie necessarily. Not that there's anything wrong with being a hippie, but he went down the kind of road, like he started getting into weed and tie-dye and the Dead and Pink Floyd. And I remember him telling me that he went to a Pink Floyd concert in Norway when he was like 19 or 20. And
whoa, it sounds like a cool dude.
They had those, remember they did a tour where they had like those giant inflatable pigs floating around.
Yeah.
And he saw some dude, they had like balcony seats at some arena in Norway, leap off the balcony to try to land on one of these pigs and just plummet to his death. So I remember hearing that when I was like, I heard that way too young. I heard it when I was like 9 years old, and it was just like, no, acid will kill you. You'll if I'm not, I'll jump out the window. I will take acid and plummet to my death. Somehow I will find some high precipice to leap off of, and that'll be it. So I've always been kind of terrified of it for that specific reason.
There's a lot of, and I think some of it was like propaganda, but if you watch like television shows from the 70s or whatever, someone's always, if there's an acid episode of Chips, the dude's definitely going out a window, like guaranteed. It's not going to end well. You know what I mean? He's not going to figure out something. He's going to
right
plummet to his death.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. But we really are living in a completely different climate now in terms of the stigma attached to drugs of all kinds, especially hallucinogenics. They were so vilified. It was part of the war on drugs, is scaring people, and this will happen and that'll happen, and you're gonna blow your mind up, and you're gonna unleash some dormant schizophrenia, and the benefits were ignored, and acid was used like 100 years ago, wasn't it used in more of a medical capacity?
Well, I mean, what, like, and I know this from reading, Origin Grateful Dead stories, but in the 60s, for example, they were using it. I think it was Stanford. They were using it to, working with like the military thought they could use it for like brainwashing and finding out like secrets of the enemies, and people were using it to get off, like heroin and addiction. And there was like a lot of interest in it, and people would go in to do these like drug trials, these hippie, and then they would like sneak some out and give it to like legitimately friends would give it to like Jerry Garcia and like give it to these people that started this movement. But when you think about it, if you are an adult, like the biggest counterculture movement probably ever, hippie, all of a sudden, like for the first time since like Shakespearean times, men were growing their hair long. They were like, quitting school and doing all this shit and going against the government. Like it was a real revolutionary time. And I think they looked at LSD as part of the reason. And they just went on this like campaign for like 40 years or whatever, or 50 years of how bad, drugs were. And you believe it. Like when you hear about like ketamine treatment, I always thought like, if you said to me 15 years ago that like doctors are going to be using Special K, I'd be like, there's no way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's nuts.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. I mean, if it's solving problems and you're talking about firsthand using it and it helping you, it's incredible that it's not as frowned upon. And I even feel like different from when I first started doing jokes about acid, and they were some of my first jokes. I feel like it's different now. Like an LSD user, you picture like, like I guarantee you, if they were still making, and they still might be making this show, I don't really have my finger on the pulse when it comes to this, but there'd be like a Sex and the City episode where they all take ayahuasca or LSD. Like if they were to remake the show now, those are the people, you know what I mean? It's like, you hear about people like taking mushrooms and experiencing with hallucinogenics, and there's like Lululemon women wearing, like, you know what I mean? It's like, it's not like, the dirtbag kid in a Pink Floyd shirt anymore. It's like, a woman, she owns a Pilates center in Chelsea, and they go away to the spa and do hallucinogenic. It's so funny how quickly that's turned,
Yeah. It's all under the umbrella of wellness, It's medicinal. It's almost it's become trendy in a lot of ways, which is, I'm sure the pendulum has to swing in both directions to find a middle ground, which I look forward.
Yeah.
Because it's, it's almost, I don't want to say overexposed, but you hear people talking about microdosing all the time, and it's not going to be the answer to your problems. It can unlock things that need to be dealt with, but it's not going to cure you.
But just you saying the pendulum swinging, like when I think of like dudes with a jean jacket that said Led Zeppelin on the back, lecturing their younger brother, like, be careful to hang out with Phil Hanley because he takes acid, to now the character who Sarah Jessica Parker's playing in a movie is going on her mushroom retreat. It's funny. You would never think that pendulum would swing, to that far, from like metalhead kids to, pillars of the community.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, I think the stigma for that has changed, and I think the stigma for dyslexia has changed too. I remember I knew my brother's friend growing up had dyslexia, and I remember my mom telling me, like, what's dyslexia? And I always thought this guy seemed he always seemed a little bit confused, and I always read this, Chris was his name, and I was like, why is he like, I don't think I ever insinuated that he was stupid, but he seemed a little bit lost and confused a lot of the time. And I remember asking my mom, is he okay? And he's like, oh, he has dyslexia. And what's dyslexia? That's a way of, you process information differently. Letters and words don't look the same. But I kind of wrote this guy off. I have to admit, I kind of wrote this guy off like, oh, I guess he's just kind of a moron, But now that's not true at all anymore. It is things that were kind of written off as, that kid's just fucking weird, or that kid's just problematic, or just hyper, Now there's diagnoses for all these things, ADD, dyslexia, and it's treated with much more care and consideration for the people that have them. So I don't know. I mean, do you wish that you could have do it all over again. Like, man, if only I was born now and I could go through the school system now and get the support and encouragement that I didn't get then.
Yeah, well, no, like, it's funny you say that. I'm in the process, and we'll do this afternoon when we're done. I will start doing it. But I'm writing a book about, and I've like sold the book, and I'm writing this book about being dyslexic, and I'm so grateful. It was so hard, but if I was not dyslexic, I wouldn't be a stand-up comedian. I wouldn't be friends with Doug Smith. I wouldn't have met George today. I wouldn't be on this podcast. I wouldn't be, dating the woman that I'm dating now. I wouldn't be living in New York City. I'd be somewhere in Ontario where I grew up, and I would have followed the path that all my friends followed, which was great, but I wouldn't trade. Like, it's like all the things that I'm grateful for in my life, my relationship with my mom, my admiration for my, dad, the way he parented, and all the things that I hold, my love for the Grateful Dead. I listen to 40 hours of the Dead a week. Bob Weir's dyslexic, Bobby, and that really, when I heard that, when I was a kid, they were always like, Tom Cruise is dyslexic, and I'd be like, oh, fucking great, I'll star in top. Thanks for that. Like, thank you for, what is that going to do for me? Zero. I'm going to be in The Outsiders. What? Like, I don't, So, but when I found out Bob Weir was dyslexic, I'm like, oh, like, so here's a guy, a musician that I respect. And so, yeah, I know it was brutal. It really was tough, but I'm grateful for those experiences, because even it just, it really made me who I was, and it provided me all these opportunities, because otherwise there's no way I would get to live in New York City or work at the Comedy Cellar or, be friends with the people that I'm friends with and all this stuff. So I'm grateful, but I am even more grateful that your son wouldn't have to go through what I went through, because it was tough. It really was tough.
It almost seems like dyslexia it's not, I don't know if I'd call it a superpower, but it allows your brain, it seems, to function in ways that other people don't. Like, you have a real ability with words, word structure, the language, comedy in general, how to compose jokes, that is really, really profound. That who knows if you would have had that if your brain processed things the normal way. You know what I mean? My son is like, his artistic ability is fucking unreal. And I was a fine artist. I went to art school for 2 years. That's my whole life. I wanted to be a cartoonist. That's the one path that I followed until I took a writing class in art school and diverted to comedy. But he is leaps and bounds ahead of where I ever was. It's mind-blowing. And all this shit from his imagination. He comes up with these characters, these monsters, these demons. And we watch these shows, and I'm like, you see that monster right there that you're completely infatuated with? That was somebody's job to conceptualize that monster, to come up with, he's going to have horns that are this big and fangs that are this big. Somebody came up with that using their imagination, put pen to paper, and drew that, named it exactly what you do right now. You can do that for a living. And he's like, what? Really? It's like, it's his mind works in a way that, like I said, these friends of his that are academically on track, they don't have this disability that he has. They don't have that, and I'm not saying he's better than them, but it's like, it's not always the worst thing for your brain. Yes, in terms of adapting to society and these standards for schooling that we have now that, like I said, are antiquated. That sucks, but it's almost like it allows your brain to function in a creative way that other people don't have. It's almost kind of I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it sounds like that's basically what you're saying. It's almost kind of a blessing. It's allowed for all these other things to unfold in your life.
Doug, absolutely. I don't know if there's a single thing in my life that I don't cherish. The single thing in my life that I cherish that I don't credit to dyslexia. I'm just trying to think it. Yeah, and it does affect everything. Like Chris, who you're saying appeared confused he probably was, because there's things like organization, and we do struggle with a lot of things that even my mom, who was an expert in dyslexia, still didn't think the reason that my room was so messy that I was dyslexic. But that's documented. We struggle with organization and all these different things. And but yeah, there is a thing too, and it just makes sense. If your son is in school, and thankfully it doesn't sound like he experiences this now, but last year, and he's like feels boxed in because he can't express himself writing, and he doesn't really understand what they just read and all this stuff. And then he comes home and he's like, oh my God, now I can draw and stuff like that. He's going to excel because that was really bottled up. And that's how with me, with comedy, was like, I was so stifled and so kind of like oppressed while I was in that fucking desk that like when recess came, I was like, hey, ha, hoo, ha. Like I had 10 minutes to get it out of my system and talk and express myself. And so I think it lends itself to excel in an area that you're not given that opportunity in school, I think.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it's awesome, man. It's really nice to hear that you were able to have that outlook on things. You're not pessimistic. You're not a skeptic. You're not like, I got fucked over by the system and I'm still resentful and angry. Like, you really are able to kind of, and dude, if dyslexia and acid leads to the comedic capabilities that you have, like, hey man, lean into that shit. I almost want to encourage everybody to, not that you can manifest dyslexia, but like between the dyslexia and the acid and seeing what you're capable of doing on stage, it's pretty awesome, man. So keep it up.
Thank you for saying that. That means a lot. That means a lot coming from you. And I'm just that you're open to understanding dyslexia. Like it's all I would say to dyslexic parents. Your number one job is just maintain their self-esteem, because it's going to go through the ringer, especially if they're in a normal school. And to a parent that doesn't want the label, or, no, they're fine. They just, a lot of people get B's backwards or whatever. No, it's such a disservice, because like your child has these other gifts that they will discover, for sure. And it's just not going to be reading and writing, or it's going to take them along. Like I didn't read a first book for fun until I was like in my 20s. Like it just didn't happen, so.
And you're proving everybody wrong now. Like if your teachers in fourth grade knew that you were going to, cut to however many years down the road, going to be writing a book.
Yeah. Talking a lot of shit about them, by the way. Talking shit about those a-holes. It was really emotional to tell my mom, because she sat with me. And when I said earlier, I was just saying the words like moon and sun and apple. I remember my mom would take cut out the shape of an apple and have try to teach me reading every night. And it was so excruciating. I would like throw the book across the room and all this stuff. And, it was really, 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 really tough. And I thought that when I told my mom I sold the book, I got like super emotional, because just for her, she advocated. They would try to fail me every year, and my mom would have to go in to be like, no, you shouldn't fail him. He's not stupid. We're figuring out what it, you know what I mean? And just like try to talk to these people that are just basically insulting and belittling her kid. And she'd be nice and I mean, I'm sure my dad would have had a very different approach. My dad's attitude was always like, oh, you're smarter than those goddamn teachers. Like that was his, always his attitude. But yeah, man, well, I'm so, I think you'll see, like, I have such a great feeling about your son. If you're his dad and his mom is obviously a very highly educated woman, and he already has these artistic abilities. Like, to me, that's what I would want if I had offspring. That's what I want from my nephew. I want him to paint and skateboard and do all these creative things. I don't what? So you, like in Canada, you're learning who the first prime minister was? Like that's going to come up in conversation. No one gives a shit. You know what I mean? As long as I love when my nephew, you know, I don't care what he's learning, but as long as he's like diving deep in whatever the topic is and is interested in these things, and you're like, that's, who cares if it's not part of the curriculum? It's showing interest. It's showing that he's driven to learn things, you know?
Yeah. Having a passion about something, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna so you're gonna be working on your book today?
I'm gonna go get a coffee, and I'm at the halfway point. And it's taking me longer than I'm sure most people. It took me 4 years to get the proposal together to take it out to publishers and stuff. But I just put on tunes, put on a late 80s Grateful Dead show, and drink a coffee, man. It'd be good.
That's awesome, dude. I can't wait to read it.
You, given that your situation, that your son is part of the brotherhood, man, the Dyslexic Brotherhood, I'll be sure to give you guys a coffee for sure.
Awesome. You want to let people know where they can find you?
Yes. My Instagram is Phil M Hanley, Hanley, and TikTok Phil Hanley. And then please watch my special Ooh La La on my YouTube channel, and subscribe to my YouTube channel, please. It's hard to get people to subscribe to YouTube channels, it seems, but please do, and come to a show, and I'll talk about dyslexia, and then probably LSD still too.
Awesome, dude. Well, keep up the good work, dude. It's really a fucking fantastic special, dude. I was really blown away.
That means a lot. Thank you.
I can't wait to watch it again. It's so fucking dense with jokes, dude. I was like having to rewind bits. I was like, God damn, it's just like a fucking speed bag of laughs and punchlines. Like, you really swung for the fences and knocked it out of the park, dude. So
thanks. Thank you. That means a lot to me, Doug.
All right, everybody. There you have it. Phil Hanley. Check out his special Ooh La La on his YouTube channel as we speak. Give him a follow at Phil M Hanley on all the socials. Please give me a follow at Who Doug Smith if you're not already, and rate, review, subscribe, all that horse shit. The success of this podcast depends on you. I thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for the support. I really appreciate it. I'm really enjoying doing this for you guys, and I hope you guys are enjoying it too. Hope to see you next week. Goodbye.